My, this is lively music for an early morning here at Cover Your Assets, Financial Tactics for the 21st Century. Please check us out at coveryourassets21.com. There you will find information about the team, the show, and of course the ever-important Financial Crisis Bible, authored by Mr. Todd Rooker himself, sitting here at the table. We also have Craig Nestor and Derek Walgrave. And guys, we just had a fleeting, fabulous segment with our partner Scott Letourneau out of Nevada, and he helps businesses in all manner. Craig, you've had some exchanges with him of late.
Yeah, actually I had the pleasure to talk with Scott last week, and I was blown away by his knowledge. I mean, the how to set up companies and how to protect your assets. It really wraps around the name of our show, Cover Your Assets. And something that I learned that I had no idea is people that set up LLCs, and when they are the sole partner within that
single-member LLCs.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. They are completely at risk. Their assets are, and that's something I had no idea.
Interesting that people will often run their single-member LLC out of their own personal Social Security number, which provides you virtually no protection whatsoever.
Yeah.
So it's a shocking thing. The thing about what Scott does that's really exciting is that he can help a person not only structure their business, but when he talks about get it off to a fast start. I've been in the financial planning business for 27 years, and Beth Patterson, who was talking about the Washington County event, does reverse mortgages. When we were at our peak doing direct mailings, I got in when I walked away from my primary company and went out on my own. I started doing direct mailings, and at one point we were mailing out 300,000 pieces of mail a week.
Wow.
I had many, many people working for us, and the point that I want to make is in the first year of perfecting this, I lost $150,000 of real money. Most people, frankly, especially individual practitioners, would have been out of business about 10% of the way into that. And the fact is that when I got it up and running and learned how to do it, it was a highly effective business model. But if someone had taught me the things that Scott could teach me, I could have figured out right from the onset if that was even a good model for my business, the type of business in the first place, and second of all, how to do it more effectively so I wouldn't have lost so doggone much money. Mm-hmm. So that's some of the stuff he does. Now, speaking of that, reverse mortgages at Beth Patterson, she didn't say a whole lot about her product herself, so I want to talk a little bit about her and why that is relevant or germane to our particular show and topic. A lot of people are experiencing, financial challenges. A reverse mortgage is a tremendous opportunity to take equity within the home and liquidate or annuitize it over a period of time and create an income stream. For a lot of people, that is the absolute boost that they need to enable them to be able to make their payments and deal with the inflationary issues that happen over time and all of those things. And it's just an amazing product that in its infancy was a little bit questionable. At this point, it has developed and evolved into a fabulous product. And Beth, maybe you want to talk a little bit about that.
I've been in the business since 1999, and I've seen many changes and more continuing every day, but it is very well protected. The most common product and the only one available in Minnesota is insured by FHA. And there's some differences from the conventional mortgage in the fact that borrowers don't have to make monthly payments, so their cash flow is improved and the risk of foreclosure for not having to make a monthly payment is reduced. Another difference is that the reverse mortgage is non-recourse. So at the very end, if the loan balance is higher than what the home could be sold for, the borrowers or their heirs don't have to come up with that difference.
So let's be specific about what that means. First, typically a cash-out refi would ordinarily be the alternative to this, which of course you would on the one hand increase cash flow because you'd have the money to use over time as a resource, but then you'd also have to offset that against the monthly payments that would be made. Here you'd not have to do that. And when you talk about the non-recourse element of that, what that really means is that if in the end they've paid out, they being the insurance carrier has paid out more money in the form of payments than what the home can actually be redeemed for, that deficiency that ordinarily someone might see in a short sale where they might be fearful the bank will come after them. In this case, it's non-recourse. They can't be pursued for it. That is what you mean?
Correct. The borrower or the heirs do not have to come up with that difference.
When we had a client not too long ago where they just simply were struggling with cash flow, fixed income, and they just needed more help with hearing aids and some medicine and their mortgage payments. And it was enough to get that family through a very difficult time. So, Beth, thank you for being here today. Look forward to working with you on December 1st.
And doing your thing at what's the title of the seminar that you'll be doing in Washington County again?
Housing Solutions, how to make the best choice for your circumstance.
And you can get the information at coveryourassets21.com. There's a flyer for it, and they are asking to take reservations because the seats do fill up, which is a good thing. And you can call us, too, and talk with any of the experts anytime during the week as well at 855-835-8500. That's 855-835-8500. Now, guys, sitting around the table, Derek Walgrave, Todd Rooker, Craig Nestor, a lot of information that we put out here every single week. And what we were hoping that we could do, is kind of go a little bit of a layer deeper on what the Cover Your Assets team does on a daily basis. You guys can help restructure, recover, and reinvent in the new now. So which one of you is going to step up and tell us what that really means?
Well, I think sometimes who calls me is someone that a light goes on and they kind of figure out, hey, wait a minute, this isn't working. And I'm house stressed. There's a whole bunch of moving parts. I'm really not sure the best avenue to take. And what happens in that case is that people buy themselves 30 days at a time. They have limited amounts of dollars and they put a little bit here and a little bit here. And they buy themselves 30 days, but they're not solving the problem. And what happens, they get to the end of their rope and they don't have the dry powder to make really solid decisions.
Now, when you say house stressed, you're not talking about hating the kitchen wallpaper here. We're talking about what?
It's a very weary and defeating feeling. People are used to being able to slug their way out of these problems.
You mean like not
they
being
can't make their house payments.
Thank you.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
These are times when people can't borrow any money and they're not able to work as much as they want to with a recessionary type job market. So they're struggling, and we're able to try to look at some solutions where they can, one, fight for their house and win, or two, downsize with a plan. If it's a single save your house or move your house, that's something that it's in our wheelhouse here. I work with Derek in that regard. If there's too many moving parts, then we bring in Todd to kind of separate these things, but keep them underneath one strategic umbrella so we know exactly what professional to call in and in what order we execute these choices.
And one of the first things you may look at, Craig Nestor, foreclosure defense, when somebody is house stressed, as you say, the first thing you might consider is whether or not they're in a suspicious loan, and possibly if they need to audit the product that they're in right now. That might be a starting point before you start working through the other experts on the team, right?
Well, we want to see, first of all, cash or credit. I mean, what's more important to you? Is it cash now or credit now? Are you going to stay in the home or should you go now? There's some fundamental things that we want to address. And if a family's looking to stay in their home, one of the things that we will use is a forensic audit to determine the violations in their loan documents to give us an equal playing field when we negotiate with that lender.
All right, so more specifically, an audit is to find or uncover violations in the origination of the loan that could be used as leverage in a modification, even possibly to reduce principal balance, and do that using it as leverage where otherwise they may not have been able to get the loan modification.
Well, I think what happens with families, Todd, is that they drop to bended knee and they ask for help, and they're not really responding to that request. So what the audit does is it does level the playing field where there are violations in the loan documents where we can use those as leverage to bring a decision maker in and have a common sense conversation. It helps to get past the cube farm and the initial phone calls to the 800 number operators, and allows us some access where we can work something out.
Well, it is theoretically going to war with the bank and battling with them. And the problem is that oftentimes people have not, as I like to call it, squared their shoulders for the battle. They'll tell you that they'll do anything to keep their house, and they're ready to fight to keep their house. But the idea of actually fighting with the bank who holds their mortgage doesn't even occur to them, or frankly scares the heck out of them.
Yeah.
But the reality is that there are many loans that were done in the past at a time when no one really needed to look at them or scrutinize them, because at that time housing values were appreciating so quickly that even the banks weren't that concerned, because you know what? If things went bad, you could always sell your way out of your house in an appreciating market, walk away with equity, and everybody's made whole. In today's market, it's a totally different situation. So when you look back at those loans that were done in hindsight, you can see that there were violations, as Craig likes to say, big enough to drive a truck through, and those can be used as leverage against the bank to get them to give you a modification and enable you to stay in your house. So if you really want to fight to keep your house, well, then by God, you better be willing to do those types of things.
We're doing that right now. I have a young couple. It's Eddie and Jamie, and Eddie served 2 tours in Iraq. In the first tour, he was actually in combat. He was going through the buildings that you see that are halfway demolished, and he was moving people out of those buildings. He did such a good job his first tour, they gave him a second year, and they promoted him to where he actually escorted the Iraqi war crime judges from the courtroom back to their living areas. So he was a target for a year.
You think?
Absolutely. He comes back home, and there's no jobs here. And he's looking, and he's knocking on doors. He's knocking on every warehouse, every landscaping service, every construction site. And he finally gets a job at $10 an hour, and it took him 4 months to get that. During that time, he's exhausted his savings, and he calls his lender. This is a good soldier. He's fought for his country, did 2 tours in Iraq. He's running into trouble. He calls his lender. His lender says, "I'm sorry, Eddie, I can't help you until you're late."
Jeez.
So Eddie goes late. He goes late 2 months, and he calls the lender back. "Hey, reporting is ordered. I'm now 60 days behind, and they'll now send you the documentation." He's filled out the documentation. Look, he escorted people through landmines, right? Filling out the paperwork wasn't hard to overcome. They lost that paperwork, and when he called them back after 4 months, they said, "We can't help you. You're already in the foreclosure process," and scheduled a sheriff's sale.
And he's at this point thinking just a little old IED would be easier than this, right?
That's
so
it.
You're the first phone call oftentimes in this process, Craig. And what's really cool is we'll get into in the next segment how you will rely on Todd Rooker to make a decision, because maybe it is or isn't the best choice for him to stay in his home. And then if it's not, depending on all the factors that Todd, in biased advice, is going to look at, then we may call in Derek Walgrave and look at some more stuff. So the Cover Your Assets team, financial tactics for the 21st century, online at coveryourassets21.com. That's coveryourassets21.com. And on the phone all week long, 855-835-8500. That's 855-835-8500. We'll be back with more of the process and what the team is up to.
AM 1280.